Kenya. That is the chairman of our campaign team, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, Honorable Moses Wetangula, who are out of town in Western Kenya. Honorable Isaac Ruto is in Bomet. The statement will be read on our behalf by Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I would not even want to paraphrase this statement, and I think the weight of it should speak for itself. But perhaps Honorable Raila might want to speak to it. It's entitled Military Operation Planned to Subvert Election and Hand Over Power to Uhuru. We have called you today to alert you to one of the greatest developments in the history of our country. We have received damning information and concrete evidence of an audacious plan that the Jubilee administration and the top military commanders have put in place to use force and subvert next month's election with a rigged outcome. The plan is to hand over power to President Uhuru Kenyatta by completely illicit and unconstitutional means. Every aspect of the elaborate democratic polling system that has been put in place over the last 4 years will be undermined and a military operation conducted to deliver the presidency to Uhuru. Jubilee has clearly recognized and been so informed by the National Security Intelligence Service that it is headed for defeat after a disastrous 4 years in which the vast majority of Kenyans have suffered unprecedented deprivation and hardships. But determined to stay in power, it has enlisted what is referred to in documents which detail the anti-democratic plot to use loyal officers by quote-unquote tribe and who are quote-unquote regime-friendly to subvert this election. The plans include cutting of power and water, and then militarily isolating settlements such as Mathare and Kibra on election day, possibly on the pretext of containing the spread of cholera. We are presenting here the evidence of the mobilization, coordination going on to have the military install Uhuru as president in August. The documents indicate that very large numbers of officers and soldiers will be participating in the plot. Also included will be 226 new soldiers being trained at Mariakani Barracks to be deployed on this mission. The new soldiers don't have networks in the military. Because they are new, they will readily take any orders and at the same time cannot be identified, nor can they communicate with other soldiers who might not be privy to the plot and who would be opposed to it. The soldiers are being trained on how to cut off power and water in Kibera and Mathare slums and keep people out of the city center. They are planning to transport ballot papers to rural areas, codenamed Special Transit Goods, or in short abbreviation SDG. They will register telephone lines in the names of dead soldiers. They are taking engineers to provide military points of contact within Central Kenya region. Those military contacts are provided in a letter that we have numbered 4 as follows. 1. The overall military contact person for Central region is given as Colonel J.A. Order of telephone 0727 944 027. Secondly, for Kiambu County, is Lieutenant Colonel V.N. Buru of telephone number 0724 600 594. Thirdly, Muranga is under Major VM Gitonga of telephone 0727 713155. Fourth, Kirinyaga is under PN Jenga, telephone 0726 00755. Fifthly, Nyeri is under Lieutenant Colonel Masai of telephone 0722 917 591. Central Kenya is crucial to this operation, which will drive out NASA agents in order to announce near 100% voter turnout for President Uhuru. They are developing both air and land emergency evacuation and humanitarian support. To actualize these goals, a meeting is going on today whose theme is, I quote, proactivity in mission planning and delivery. The entire meeting is devoted to issues dealing with election, which the military has no legal right to be involved in. The agenda items include election scenarios and legal implications. There is also a sinister reference to command experiences within AMISOM, strengths and weaknesses. As you all know, AMISOM refers to the AU mission in Somalia, under which our armed forces have obtained their only real experience in fierce war and combat. The military is specifically asked to deliver election to Jubilee. Soldiers being deployed are required to be regime-friendly, as I said, code name referenced RF, and from the correct tribe, code reference TB. A team of 1 plus 12, meaning command and 12 fighters, are the ones to be given lines to be registered in the names of dead soldiers. They will have power line termination tools and power source. On completion of the tasks, these soldiers will be deployed on special missions, probably outside of the country, to ensure they cut contacts and their accounts credited with some money. These soldiers are to be supplied with equipment spelled out in document number 6. And this equipment includes, number 1, land cruiser, close signal frequency jammers, I think there are 2 in number, and number 2, electric shock flexible baton, number 3, stun gun, number 4, hammers, number 5, power saw, number 6, metal steel cutters, number 7, 50 riot clubs and whips to each. For some time now, we have been saying that President Uhuru Kenyatta is planning to overthrow the Constitution and use the military to rig himself back into office after realizing that he has already lost the August elections. We underestimated the scope of that dastardly threat, which we have now reviewed. We are giving copies of this document to all international election observers and to all members of the diplomatic corps based here in Nairobi. Thank you. Yeah. So can you sign them? Oh, you want to use it instead?
Well, my colleague has already read the statement, but this plot follows a meeting that took in State House, and there is correspondence to that effect. And following the CDF notice of meeting with the State House and State House representative, and subsequent meeting with Sunray, as a code name, the undersigned has been directed to inform you to coordinate the following key activities. A, make available on standby for the period between 3rd and 16th July 36 officers of ranks of major or captain, and considering infantry composition of these officers. So this letter goes on to give a lot of details of what is subsequent to the meeting that took place in State House. So this is something that has been sanctioned at the very top, because this is coming from the CDF himself, giving instructions now to junior officers to do what we are talking about. So this is no longer just hearsay, but this is letter signed on his behalf by Mr. R.D. Muye, Lieutenant Colonel, and is signing for the commander. So this is not just hearsay. Each time we talked about this matter, they've said we're just talking. But today we are giving you detailed information which confirms what we have been talking about, that there is a sinister plan to use the military to interfere with the electoral process. We want a confirmation that we are going to have elections in this country. There's no point in us making all the elaborate arrangements that we're making, campaigning, when somebody wants to shortchange the whole process through the back door. This is not going to be acceptable. The Kenyan people will not accept it. Neither, I hope, will the international community sanitize this kind of process. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Leila Mohammed from NTV Kenya. Are you willing to share with the Kenyan public details of these allegations that you have made today, and just to clarify on how did you get this information in terms of that particular meeting?
Each one of you is going to get a copy, detailed copy of this correspondence and this plot, so that you have a basis for your reporting. You'll get that. As our source, that, as you know, must remain our source. We must protect our sources. But I did tell you before that we have sources, and anything that we say can be substantiated. We just don't talk in vain.
Timothy Otieno, KTN News. My question is almost a follow-up from that of my colleague. Perhaps if you could confirm to us when this particular meeting that you say was held in the House, which date it took place, and who were present in that meeting.
You have the information, and you'll be able to glean that from that information. What you have is what is there, because that letter is referring to a meeting in State House. And so the date, they have not stated when that meeting took place, but it did take place, and the instructions is subsequent to that meeting that took place in State House.
You filed a case about a similar issue. Are you going to table the evidence you have in court?
Well, that is a matter for our lawyers. The case in court is basically to get a ruling that the president cannot deploy the military for any operations without express authority of parliament. That is what is in the Constitution. And I gave you an example. For example, when we wanted to take our military to Somalia, as a prime minister, I had to move a motion in parliament seeking authority of parliament to allow us as government to deploy the troops in Somalia. So what is happening now is completely illegal. The president has no powers or authority under the Constitution to deploy the military, although he's a commander-in-chief. This is not his private army. He cannot deploy them without express authority of parliament. But what is happening here is trying to deploy them right now without that. And they are already recruiting new officers. The information that has been read to you here is that they have recruited new officers who are under training, and these are the ones who are going to be deployed. So they're not using the officers who are in service as of now.
Solidarity Foundation, you did read out a few contacts for the appointment in various areas as NASA tried to contact them to ask for their plans. Perhaps have you made any follow-ups regarding the phone numbers you got here today?
We do not.
He did read out a few phone numbers of the men alleged to be appointment in various areas. You having the document and having the numbers, have you engaged in any way, any communication with them?
No. What we've done is we check the true caller. The true caller confirms to us that those really are the people with those numbers. And those were actually are active officers in the military.
Well, then you can see, according to me, and this is exactly what happened in 2013. Remember the core center somewhere in industrial area, the underground cabling to bombers of Kenya, and what Ezra Chiloba now announces. These jammers will ensure that there will be no transmission by our agents from the areas that will have been cordoned off by the military. And therefore will be forced to await the arrival of the forms. You can almost certainly see that the electronic transmission will fail. That there will be manual voting taking place. So to this extent then, IBC are complicit. We keep on saying, we cannot, this is a wonderful nation. If we all love this country, then we are either serious about democracy or we are not. 2013 was a stolen election. Why would they want to steal again? This time by very crude methods. Therefore, Algaria printing, I personally suspect the printing has already taken place. So it doesn't make sense for IEBC to ask us to nominate people to go to Dubai to verify printing of ballots when they have already done it. Please, we should be given a break as a country. This is very painful.
In these documents, you'll see what they're referring to as a greenhouse.
And special transit goods.
And then they're called special transit goods, which are going to be transported from greenhouse to certain destinations. And that's why those destinations are going to be cordoned off as no-go zone areas. And that's where those officers have been put in charge. Special transit goods are ballot papers, which are already in the country. So the idea of asking us to send our representatives to go to Dubai to witness the packaging of ballot papers in Dubai is hogwash. Because the ballot papers are already here. And they are somewhere they call special greenhouse, where they are being stored. So we are, of course, also going to copy this to the IBC, so that IBC is full in the picture. But you can see the reason why there was insistence that only Al Ghurair must print ballot papers. Because there was an arrangement with Al Ghurair to do so. Because any other printer would not probably have complied with these requirements. So we are now being forced to go into an election whose outcome is already known, predetermined. We are not that stupid. We will not until we get full confirmation that we are going to go have a truly democratic and transparent electoral system. And that every Kenyan is going to be allowed to cast a ballot, and only ballot cast by registered voters will count. Not dead voters, not other ghost voters who have been invented by Jubilee elsewhere. This is not negotiable. This is not negotiable at all. Kwa Kiswahili, tumegundua leo na tumetoa ushahidi dhahiri shairi ya kwamba kuna njama ambayo imepangwa na Jubilee kuiba kura katika uchaguzi zijazo. Kwanza kumekuwa na mkutano ambayo ilifanywa kule katika ikulu na mkuu wa jeshi pamoja na rais. Katika hiyo mkutano kutokana na hiyo mkutano mpango imefanywa ya kuingiza jeshi kwa mpango ya uchaguzi. Kuna kikosi maalum ambayo tayari inafundishwa ili ifanye yale ambayo wanayotaka. Jeshi watakuwa na vifaa, kwanza zingine zitakuwa za kuzuia mawasiliano, yani jamming of communication, ili wale ambao wanataka kufanya kutangaza moja kwa moja au kurusha matokeo na kujumlisha, yani parallel tallying, isiweze kufanya kazi. Na itakuwa ni yale matokeo yao ambao wanataka litarushwa. Upande zingine au jamaa watakuwa na vifaa vya kukata stima katika vitongoji vingine, na watakata hata maji katika eneo hizo zote, na katika eneo zingine watazuia mawasiliano kamili, na hata wale wakilishi wa vyama watazuiwa kuingia kwenye vituo vya kupiga kura. Ili na kura bandia tayari chapishwa, ambayo wataitoa kwenye nyumba ambayo wanasema inaitwa greenhouse, na zitasafirishwa eneo zingine, kama mfano mkoa wa Kati, na kwenda kuwekwa kule, kuingizwa kwenye masanduku na kuhesabiwa kama ni kura. Hii ni njama kubwa zaidi ambaye inaweza kuleta shida kubwa katika taifa letu la Kenya. Kwa hivyo sisi tunataka kwanza hakikisho ya kwamba jeshi hawatajiingiza. Leo hii kuna mkutano inaendelea katika vituo ya kijeshi hadi ya jeshi kujitayarisha kwa mambo ya uchaguzi. Kazi ya uchaguzi si kazi ya wanajeshi. Usalama katika uchaguzi sio mambo ya wanajeshi. Hii ni mambo ya askari, police, civilian force, sio wanajeshi. Wanajeshi kazi yao ni kulinda taifa letu dhidi ya maadui ambao watatoka nje, sio usalama wa ndani. Na kwa hivyo manake wanajua wale ambao tayari wako pale hawezi kufanya kazi kama hiyo, wameleta kikosi kimpya ambayo wanafundisha wakati huu. Kwa hiyo njama ya kuiba kura. Kwa hivyo sisi barua tumepeleka kwa tume ya uchaguzi, na vile vile kwa wale washuhuda wa uchaguzi ambayo wako hapo kutoka nje, pamoja na mabalozi ya nchi za nje ambao ziko hapa katika taifa letu. Tungependa kuona kama ulimwengu mzima inashuhudia ile njama ambayo imepangwa na serikali ya Jubilee ya kuiba kura, na kutusaidia kama Wakenya ili ende kwa uchaguzi ambayo tayari imeibiwa tayari. Tunataka hakikisho ya kwamba uchaguzi itakuwa wa haki na ukweli. Sawa. Sawa.
Okay. Of course, you expect the issue of quick denials and things like those. Kenyans will judge for themselves whether this is a time to tolerate another stolen election.
Probably I can share some details with you about the documents that we have given to you. There's a document marked number 3. These documents have got numbers. They are number 1 to 7. This document, which is marked number 3, it is important to the extent that is talking of a meeting which is taking place today. And there's a program. What I'm looking at is a program for the meeting today for what is called Formation Commanders Conference 2017. And there's a reference to a letter which had earlier been written on the 21st of July. And this letter is signed by a lieutenant colonel for the chief of the defense forces. And this meeting that is taking place today has a program, and the only substantial meeting and the agenda of their meeting today is on elections, and more specifically in analyzing the current security situation and analysis in relation to elections and election scenarios and legal implications. And then after the tea break, which I think they must have had that tea break and gone for lunch, the substantial part of that meeting was to talk about the KDF election preparedness. And to that extent, we would call into question why the military would be having a meeting, military commanders would be having a meeting on the elections, and that the theme of the meeting is proactivity in mission planning and delivery, and the mission here being to deliver the elections. In our judgment, the theme is about delivery of the elections to the Jubilee government. Then there's a first document which is critically important about the activities that are to take place. There's a key at the end of these documents we've given you that speaks to the acronyms which have been used. And you could see part of the activities includes, and the activities are running between the 3rd of July and to 16th of July. This is a pre-election activity. And what they are trying to do in pre-planning for these activities. And you think where the security organs are actually justified to look into these activities, that there will be police activities. But now these activities are being carried out by the military. And you know, we have addressed the media before on the militarization of the elections. And here, you know, one does not need to second guess what these activities are geared towards. And for example, mapping out crowd control and how to cut off, you know, electricity and power and access to the certain areas in the city, the slum areas, and in the central business district. The activities about movement of stores, which in analysis of this document, we think these are movement of ballot papers from secured sites in Mbakasi to the rural areas. So it says, but we say rural areas here would stand for the polling stations, which are outside Nairobi. And this activity, you know, involves having certain equipment, and the equipment which are set out in another document here, which is document number 6, There are land cruisers with signal jammers. You know, there has been a lot of talk why we are having a national tallying center in Tanzania. And the concern of the state was not about the fact that it was in Tanzania, but the fact that they would not be able to jam such a tallying center, because now they have equipment for jamming such activities and interfering with transmission, electronic transmission of data, because there are all sorts of jammers here, some which are mounted on land cruisers, some on portable antennas. Then there are electric shock, flexible button, stain guns, pickets, hammers, power saw, metal cutters, riot clubs and whips. Why the military would want riot clubs and whips, portable searchlights, leather and wiring, gloves, fire extinguishers, and tear gas canisters. You know, equipment that ordinarily probably the police would use for operations, but this would be special operations because, you know, you will not have operations where the police carry this kind of equipment ordinarily. Of course, it also speaks of the soldiers who are being trained somewhere in Mariakani, who do not fall in the ordinary, military command, and to be given identity and equipment in the name of soldiers who have already died. So if you look at these documents and analyze them, and you have no doubt about their authenticity, and we say this knowing that normally when this kind of documentation is done, part of the strategy is to allow a certain degree and room for deniability. But we have no doubt in our mind that this is a legitimate, authentic documents from the military command and written in the hands of the military command officials whose signatures appear in these papers. So I guess the principals have addressed to you on this, but one can understand why they're saying they're going to win elections by 70%, why they're demanding that we should give a guarantee about accepting defeat in the elections, and about why, the president looked to be so charged when NASA went to court in relation to these military activities which are being related to the election exercise. So we'd ask you to look at this, analyze them, and if there are any questions thereafter, we are going to give updates on what we are giving you today. This is not the last bunch of information we're going to give to you. But this is serious stuff and a serious business. And we hope that, the media would want to have to make this available to members of the public. But this information is not going to, we're not giving it out in an attempt to try and change our election activities or to ask for anything other than the fact that we want free, fair, transparent, and credible elections held on the 8th of August, this year. And therefore, there it is, and you have the documents. If there is anything that you need to be highlighted, or you want something to be answered in relation to these documents, I'm prepared, to answer. Norman Magai is with me here and others. And we've been carrying out this morning an analysis of these documents. So the floor is yours, but I think you already have enough.